On his wedding day, a millionaire doctor received an emergency call from the hospital. When he reached, he saw his ex holding a sick baby girl. "Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories, your own family story channel. Heavenly God, today I bow my head with deep humility and gratitude. Please wrap every woman in this family with your divine protection, gentle strength, and unbreakable peace. Bless the women who carry silent burdens, who give love even when they are tired, who stand strong even when their hearts ache. Crown them with honor, surround them with safety, and fill their lives with health, dignity, and quiet happiness. Lord, breathe healing into their bodies, calm into their minds, and light into their paths. Let no woman in this family ever feel unseen, unvalued, or alone. Replace every tear they have hidden with joy, every fear with courage, and every prayer in their heart with answered grace. They are the backbone of families, the keepers of love, the strength behind every success. Please reward them with peace that never fades. My beautiful family, I write with love, effort, and honesty because you matter to me. When you stay, when you support, when you engage, it gives meaning to every word I write. We are not strangers here. We are one family, walking together, rising together, and praying for one another. If your heart is true, like the video, if your love is real, write. I am with Mr. Peter. Let's start with love. The silk tie felt like a noose around Alex Morn's neck. He stood at the altar of St. Catherine's Cathedral, surrounded by flowers that cost more than most people's cars, staring at a woman he didn't love. Katy Ibarra smiled at him from beneath her veil, her expression triumphant rather than joyous. Behind him, 300 guests whispered and rustled in their seats like restless birds. His mother, Cordelia Morn, sat in the front row wearing pearls and a satisfied smile that made his stomach turn. This wasn't a wedding. It was a transaction, a merger of families, bank accounts, and social standings that had been negotiated over cocktails and contracts. Katy wanted the Morn name and the status it provided. Cordelia wanted the Ibarra family's political connections and old money legitimacy. What Alex wanted had stopped mattering the day he'd been weak enough to let his mother destroy the only thing he'd ever truly cared about. The priest droned on about love and commitment, words that felt like mockery in this gilded cage. Alex's phone buzzed in his pocket, once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession, emergency protocol. His jaw tightened. He'd told the hospital he was unavailable today, that they should route all emergencies to the other cardiac surgeons on call. His mother had been clear about his priorities. The phone buzzed again, insistent, desperate. "Do you, Alexander James Morn, take this woman?" His phone rang. The shrill sound cut through the cathedral like a scream. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cordelia's face went white with fury, then red with embarrassment. Katy's smile cracked at the edges. Alex pulled the phone from his pocket with shaking hands. The screen showed Dr. Raymond Cole, head of pediatric emergency. Raymond never called unless someone was dying. "I'm sorry," Alex said to the priest, his voice hollow. "I have to take this." "Alex," Katy hissed through her perfect smile, "don't you dare." He answered the call and turned away from her, from all of them. "This better be life or death, Raymond." "It is." Raymond's voice was tight with urgency. "Critical pediatric case. Baby girl, severe congenital heart defect presenting with acute decompensation. She's coding, Alex. We need you now. No one else can do this surgery." Alex's medical training kicked in, overriding everything else. "Age?" "Under 3 years. The mother says she's been stable until today. Alex, she's crashing. We're losing her." The cathedral spun around him. The flowers, the guests, the woman in white waiting at the altar, all of it blurred into irrelevance. Somewhere in his hospital, a child was dying, a baby whose heart was failing, whose mother was probably terrified, whose tiny life hung in the balance while he stood here playing dress-up in his mother's fantasy. "I'm coming," he said. "Alexander." His mother's voice cut through the space between them like a blade. She'd risen from her seat, her face a mask of cold authority. "Where do you think you're going?" He turned to face her, this woman who'd raised him to be an extension of her will rather than a person with his own soul. "A child is dying. There are other surgeons, not for this, not for her." He didn't know why he'd said her with such certainty, but something in his chest had gone tight and strange when Raymond mentioned the mother. "I have to go." Cordelia moved into the aisle, blocking his path. The guests had gone silent, hundreds of eyes fixed on the drama unfolding. "You walk out of this church, you walk away from this family, from everything I've built for you, from the life you were meant to have." For 3 years, those words would have stopped him. For 3 years, he'd let her threats and manipulations guide every decision, convince him that obedience was love and sacrifice was duty. For 3 years, he'd lived with the ghost of the woman he'd abandoned because his mother had threatened to destroy her family's small clinic if he didn't let her go, but a child was dying. "Then I guess I'm walking away," Alex said quietly. He signaled to his head of security who stood near the entrance. "Let me through." The man hesitated, glancing at Cordelia. She nodded sharply, not permission, but a command to stop him. 2 security guards moved to block the cathedral doors. "Stand down," Alex said, his voice carrying the authority he usually reserved for the operating room. "That's an order. You work for me, not her." The guards exchanged glances. Alex had hired them himself, paid them from his own money, not the family accounts his mother controlled. After a tense moment, they stepped aside. "If you leave," Catty called after him, her voice shrill and breaking, "don't bother coming back. I won't be humiliated like this." Alex didn't turn around. He ripped off his boutonniere as he strode down the aisle, the white rose petals scattering like snow. The heavy cathedral doors slammed shut behind him, cutting off his mother's furious voice and the shocked murmurs of society's finest. His driver had the car running before Alex reached the curb. "Hospital, fast!" The city blurred past the windows as they raced through red lights and traffic. Alex loosened his tie with one hand while pulling up the patient file Raymond had sent on his phone. The details made his blood run cold. Complete atrioventricular septal defect with severe pulmonary hypertension. The baby's heart had holes between all 4 chambers, and the pressure in her lungs was critically high. Without immediate surgery, she wouldn't survive the night. But something else caught his eye in the notes. The attending physician listed on the case was Dr. Hallie Benson, pediatric cardiology. His hand froze on the phone screen. Hallie, no. It couldn't be. There had to be dozens of doctors with that name. Hallie had been a medical student when he'd known her, brilliant and passionate, but barely starting her career. She'd been accepted into a prestigious residency program across the country. He'd let her go, pushed her away, because his mother had made it clear that a black woman from a working-class family with dreams bigger than her bank account would never be welcome in the Morn world. He'd told himself he was protecting her, that she deserved better than to be chewed up by his mother's cruelty and his own cowardice. He'd blocked her number on Cordelia's orders, returned her letters unopened, and spent 3 years trying to convince himself he'd done the right thing. The car screeched to a halt outside the hospital's emergency entrance. Alex was out and running before the driver could open his door. He took the stairs 3 at a time, his dress shoes slipping on the polished floors as he burst through the doors of the pediatric ICU. The scene was controlled chaos. Nurses moved with practiced efficiency around a small bed surrounded by monitors and machines. Raymond stood at the bedside, his face grim, and there, on the other side of the tiny patient, stood a woman Alex would have recognized anywhere. Hallie. 3 years had changed her, and yet she was entirely the same. Her natural hair was pulled back in a professional twist. She wore scrubs and a white coat with her name embroidered over the pocket. Dr. Hallie Benson, Chief of Pediatric Cardiology. Her face had lost some of its softness, gained angles that spoke of sleepless nights and hard-won battles. But her eyes, those warm brown eyes that used to look at him like he hung the stars, those eyes were cold as winter when they met his. "You came," she said flatly. No surprise, no emotion, just a statement of fact. His voice failed. He couldn't look away from her, couldn't process how she was here, how she'd become chief of an entire department, how she was looking at him like he was a stranger she barely tolerated. "The patient is crashing," Hallie continued in that same detached tone, turning her attention back to the monitors. "Complete AVSD with severe PHT. She needs immediate surgical repair, or she won't make it through the night. Can you do it, or should I call someone else?" The professional question snapped Alex back to himself. He was a surgeon. A child was dying. Nothing else mattered. "I can do it. Prep OR3 and get me a full surgical team. Raymond, I need echo and cath results now." He moved to the bedside, finally looking down at his patient. The world stopped. The baby was tiny, her brown skin several shades lighter than Hallie's, but with the same warm undertones. She had Alex's nose, his exact chin. Even the small birthmark he had on his left shoulder was visible on her tiny arm, where the hospital gown had slipped. Dark curls covered her head, and when her eyes fluttered open for a brief moment, glassy with fever and medication, they were the precise shade of grey-green that Alex saw every morning in the mirror. "Her name is Poet," Hallie said quietly, still not looking at him. "Poet Benson. She's 2 years and 8 months old. And before you ask, yes, Alex, she's yours." The floor tilted beneath him. His ears rang with white noise. He gripped the edge of the hospital bed to keep from falling as the truth crashed over him like a wave. He had a daughter. Hallie had been pregnant when he'd abandoned her. For nearly 3 years, this child had existed in the world, and he hadn't known. Hadn't been there for her first breath, her first smile, her first word. Hadn't held Hallie's hand through the fear and pain of pregnancy and labor. Hadn't rocked this baby through long nights or celebrated her first steps. And now, she was dying. "Alex!" Raymond's voice came from far away. "We need to move, now!" He looked up at Hallie. Her face was a mask, professional and distant, but he could see the terror beneath it. The way her hands trembled slightly, the tightness around her mouth. She was holding herself together through sheer force of will, while her daughter, their daughter, lay dying between them. "I'll save her," Alex said, the words a vow. "I swear to you, Hallie, I'll save her." "Just do your job," Hallie replied coldly. "That's all you're good for." She walked away without looking back, and Alex understood that he'd lost more than he'd ever imagined when he'd walked away 3 years ago. He'd lost this woman, this child, this life they could have built together. And now all he could do was what he did best: cut open his daughter's tiny chest and try to repair what he'd never even known was broken. But first he had to make sure she survived long enough to hate him for the father he'd never been. Chapter 2. The life he destroyed. The surgery took 6 hours. Alex's hands moved with precision born from thousands of procedures, but his mind kept fracturing. Every suture he placed in Poet's impossibly small heart made him think of all the moments he'd missed. Every beat he coaxed from her damaged chambers reminded him that this life, this precious, fragile life, had existed without him. Through the observation window above the operating room, Hallie watched. She never moved, never looked away. Her arms were wrapped around herself like she was physically holding her body together, and Alex could feel her gaze burning through his surgical mask. "Dr. Morn," His assisting surgeon said quietly, "Your hands are shaking." They were. For the first time in his career, Alex's legendary steady hands were trembling. He closed his eyes, took a breath, and forced himself back into the zone. Poet needed him to be perfect. She needed him to be the surgeon he'd trained his entire life to become, not the father who'd abandoned her before she was even born. When the final suture was placed and her tiny heart began beating in a strong, steady rhythm, Alex felt something break open in his chest. Relief and grief mixed together until he couldn't tell them apart. "She's stable," he announced to the team. "Let's close." In the observation room, Hallie's knees buckled. She caught herself on the railing, her whole body shaking with sobs she'd been holding back for hours. Alex watched her through the glass. This woman who'd carried and delivered and raised their daughter alone, and he understood the true magnitude of his cowardice. The recovery room was quiet except for the steady beep of monitors. Poet lay small and still beneath white sheets, tubes and wires connecting her to machines that kept her alive. Alex stood at the foot of her bed, still in his surgical scrubs, afraid to get any closer. The door opened. Hallie walked in, her face composed again, every emotion locked behind professional walls. "The surgery was successful," Alex said, his voice rough. "The repair looks good. If there are no complications, she should recover fully." "I read the surgical notes," Hallie replied. She moved past him to Poet's bedside and took their daughter's small hand in hers. "Thank you for saving her life." The formal gratitude felt like a slap. "Hallie." "Dr. Benson," she corrected without looking at him. "In this hospital, it's Dr. Benson." "Dr. Benson," he repeated, the name foreign on his tongue when all he wanted to say was her first name, to beg her to look at him, to explain, to apologize for everything. "I didn't know about her. I swear I didn't know." "I know you didn't." Hallie's voice was flat, matter of fact. "I tried to tell you, called your number every day for 2 weeks after I found out I was pregnant. You blocked me. I sent letters to your apartment. They came back unopened with 'Return to sender' stamped across them. I even went to your mother's office building." Alex's stomach dropped. "You went to Cordelia." "Security threw me out before I got past the lobby." Hallie finally looked at him, and the emptiness in her eyes was worse than any anger could have been. "Your mother made it very clear that I was no longer welcome in your life. That if I tried to contact you again, she'd destroy my family's clinic and make sure I never practiced medicine anywhere." The room spun. "She threatened you. She promised me, and she had the power to do it." Hallie turned back to Poet, stroking their daughter's curls with infinite gentleness. "So I stopped trying. I finished medical school pregnant and alone. I did my residency with a baby at home being watched by my mother when I worked 30-hour shifts. I built my career while building a life for our daughter. We survived, Alex. We didn't just survive. We thrived. Because I refused to let your abandonment destroy us." Every word was a knife between his ribs. "I thought I was protecting you." Cordelia said, "I don't care what she said." The ice in Hallie's voice could have frozen blood. "You made a choice. You chose her manipulation over fighting for us. You chose the easy path of obedience over the hard path of love. And the result is that my daughter spent the first years of her life without a father because you were too weak to stand up to your mother." "You're right." The admission came out broken. "You're absolutely right. I was weak. I was a coward. I let her control me because it was easier than fighting. But Hallie, if I had known about Poet—" "What?" She turned on him, and now there was fire beneath the ice. "What would you have done? Would you have suddenly developed a spine? Would you have told your mother to go to hell and chosen us? Or would you have let her convince you that we were better off without you? That you were doing the noble thing by staying away?" Alex opened his mouth, and nothing came out because they both knew the answer. 3 years ago, he would have let Cordelia manipulate him. He would have convinced himself that absence was protection, that his daughter was better off without a father than with one who came from a toxic family. "That's what I thought," Hallie said softly. "I'm not that man anymore," Alex said desperately. "Today I walked out on my own wedding. I told Cordelia I was done. You chose to save a dying child because you're a doctor, and that's what doctors do," Hallie interrupted. "Don't pretend it was some grand romantic gesture. You didn't know Poet was yours when you left that church. You came here to do your job." She was right about that too. He'd run from the cathedral because a child needed him, not because he'd suddenly grown a spine. But something had shifted the moment he'd seen Hallie standing over that hospital bed. Something fundamental had broken and rearranged itself inside him. "What do you want from me?" he asked quietly. Hallie looked down at Poet, their sleeping daughter, who looked like both of them mixed together into something heartbreakingly beautiful. "I want you to do your job. Poet will need follow-up surgeries as she grows. You're the best pediatric cardiac surgeon in the state. I want you to treat her." "That's all? Just medical care? What else is there?" Hallie's voice went cold again. "You're not her father, Alex. A father is someone who shows up, someone who sacrifices, someone who loves their child more than their own comfort. You're just the man who donated genetic material and fixed her broken heart. Don't confuse the two." The words gutted him, but he forced himself to nod. "Okay, I'll be her surgeon, whatever she needs." "Good." Hallie sat in the chair beside Poet's bed, clearly dismissing him. "You can go now. I'm staying the night." Alex didn't move. He couldn't tear his eyes away from his daughter, this tiny person he'd helped create but never known. She had his nose, his chin, his hands, small and perfect, but she had Hallie's strength written in every line of her face, even in sleep. "Does she know about me?" he asked. "Did you tell her?" "I told her that her daddy loved her very much, but had important work to do far away," Hallie said quietly. "I told her that he made sure she was born healthy and that he thought about her every day." "I lied, Alex, because I couldn't bear to tell my daughter that her father was a coward who chose his mother's approval over her existence." Each word was precise, surgical, designed to cut deep. And they did. "I'm sorry," Alex whispered. "I'm so sorry." "Your apology means nothing to me," Hallie replied without looking at him. "Save it for Poet when she's old enough to understand what you did. Now get out. I need to be alone with my daughter." Alex left the room on shaking legs. In the hallway, he collapsed against the wall and let himself feel the full weight of what he'd done. He'd had a child for nearly 3 years and never known, never rocked her to sleep, never heard her first word or saw her first step, never been there when Hallie needed him most. His phone buzzed. 15 missed calls from Cordelia, 20 texts, each more furious than the last. The Ibarra family was threatening lawsuits. The wedding guests were scandalized. His reputation in society was ruined. Alex didn't care about any of it. He looked back through the window into Poet's room. Hallie had her head down on the edge of the hospital bed, her hand clutching their daughter's tiny fingers, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. This was the woman he'd loved more than breathing. This was the family he'd thrown away because he'd been too afraid to fight for it. But that man was dead. The man who'd walked out of the cathedral had left more than a wedding behind. He'd left his old life, his mother's expectations, and his own weakness. He just had to figure out how to prove it to the only two people who mattered. Chapter 3. The Woman Who Rose from Ashes. 3 days after the surgery, Alex discovered exactly how far Hallie had climbed without him. He was reviewing Poet's post-operative care plan in the hospital cafeteria when Dr. Raymond Cole slid into the seat across from him. The older doctor's expression was carefully neutral, which meant he had something uncomfortable to say. "I thought you should know," Raymond began, That you're working in Dr. Benson's hospital now. Alex looked up from his tablet. What do you mean, her hospital? I mean, she owns it. Raymond leaned back, studying Alex's face. 6 months ago, Hallie Benson purchased controlling shares of Mercy General through a private equity deal. She's not just chief of pediatric cardiology, Alex. She's the majority owner, your boss, technically. The tablet nearly slipped from Alex's hands. That's impossible. She's barely 30. How could she, by being brilliant, ruthless, and working twice as hard as everyone else? Raymond's voice held reluctant admiration. She made strategic investments during her residency, built a reputation as the best pediatric heart surgeon under 40, and leveraged both into enough capital and clout to buy this place when it was failing. She turned it around in months. Mercy General was losing money when she took over. Now, it's one of the most profitable hospitals in the state. Alex sat back, genuinely stunned. The Hallie he'd known had been ambitious, yes, but this level of success seemed impossible for someone so young. How? She's a force of nature, Raymond said simply. I've worked with a lot of doctors in my career, never seen anyone like her. She does 3 jobs at once and makes it look easy. Operates in the morning, manages hospital business in the afternoon, teaches residents in the evening, and somehow still manages to raise a kid alone. The casual mention of Poet made Alex's chest ache. She raised her without any help? Her mother helped when she could, but she passed away last year. Cancer. Raymond's expression softened. Hallie was with her through 6 months of treatment while maintaining her position here and caring for Poet. I don't know how she did it. Most people would have collapsed. Another wave of guilt crashed over Alex. Hallie's mother had died and he hadn't been there. Hadn't even known to send flowers or offer condolences. While he'd been living his comfortable life under Cordelia's thumb, Hallie had been fighting battles on every front alone. Why are you telling me this? Alex asked. Because you need to understand what you're dealing with, Raymond said bluntly. Hallie Benson isn't the girl you left behind. She's a powerhouse. And if you're planning to try to insert yourself into her life or Poet's life, you should know that she has the resources and the will to crush you if she thinks you're a threat. I'm not a threat, Alex protested. I just want— What do you want? Raymond interrupted. To be a father? To ease your guilt? To win her back? Because I can tell you right now that woman has ice in her veins when it comes to you. I've seen her perform surgery on dying children without flinching, but I watched her face when you walked into that operating room. She looked at you like you were already dead. Alex absorbed the harsh truth in silence. After a moment he asked, Does everyone here know about Poet being mine? Most people have figured it out. The resemblance is pretty obvious. Raymond stood, preparing to leave. My advice? Tread carefully. Hallie built an empire on the ashes of what you destroyed. She doesn't need you, and she certainly doesn't trust you. After Raymond left, Alex sat alone in the cafeteria, watching hospital staff come and go. Several of them glanced at him with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. Word had clearly spread about who he was and what he'd done. His phone buzzed. Another call from Cordelia. He declined it and pulled up information about Mercy General's acquisition. Raymond hadn't been exaggerating. Hallie had orchestrated a complex financial maneuver that would have impressed seasoned business people twice her age. She'd identified a failing institution, secured funding, and transformed it into a success story while maintaining her clinical practice and raising a toddler. She'd done all of that while he'd been playing golf at the country club and attending charity galas with Catty, pretending his life had meaning. Alex found himself walking through the hospital, observing with new eyes. The pediatric wing was state-of-the-art, clearly the beneficiary of significant recent investment. A cheerful mural covered one wall, children playing in a garden under a bright sun. He studied it closely and noticed the signature in the corner, HB. Hallie had painted it herself. "It's her favorite part of the hospital," a nurse said, stopping beside him. She was older, with kind eyes and grey-streaked hair. "Dr. Benson painted that during her lunch breaks last year. Said the children deserved to see something beautiful when they were scared." "She did a good job," Alex said softly. The nurse's expression cooled considerably. "You're Dr. Morn, Poet's father." Not a question, an accusation. "Yes," Alex admitted. "Funny how you show up the day your daughter almost dies, but were nowhere to be found when Dr. Benson was pregnant and terrified and alone." The nurse's voice was pleasant, but her words were acid. "We all remember when she started here as a resident. Pregnant belly getting bigger while she worked, shifts that would destroy most people. Never complained, never asked for special treatment. Just worked harder than everyone else and somehow still smiled at the patients." Alex had no defense to offer. "She's the best thing that ever happened to this hospital," the nurse continued. "To a lot of children who'd be dead without her skill. And to that beautiful little girl upstairs who worships her mother like she hung the moon. So if you're planning to waltz in here and disrupt their lives because you finally grew a conscience, you should know that every person in this building will stand between you and them." She walked away before Alex could respond, leaving him standing alone in front of the mural Hallie had painted. In the garden scene, a little girl with curly hair reached up toward butterflies. Even then, Hallie had been painting Poet, memorializing their daughter in art, because she couldn't share her with the child's father. Alex took the stairs to the pediatric recovery floor. Through the window of Poet's room, he could see Hallie reading to their daughter. Poet was awake now, propped up on pillows, her small face animated as she listened to whatever story Hallie was telling. Even through glass, Alex could see the love between them, profound, complete, unshakable. He was the intruder here, the stranger, the man who'd contributed nothing but genetic material and medical skill to this child's life. Hallie looked up and saw him watching. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Not anger, but something sadder. Weariness, maybe, or resignation. She carefully closed the book and stood, saying something to Poet, before coming to the door. She stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind her, putting her body between Alex and their daughter. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. "I need to talk to you," Alex said. "Not about medical things, about everything." "There's nothing to talk about. Raymond told me you own the hospital, that you built this while raising Poet alone, that your mother died last year and I wasn't there." The words spilled out. "Hallie, I missed everything. I missed all of it. And I know I don't deserve a second chance, but—" "You're right," she interrupted. "You don't deserve one. You had a chance 3 years ago to choose us, and you chose your mother instead. The fact that you didn't know I was pregnant doesn't change that fundamental truth. You left me, Alex. You blocked my calls, returned my letters, and let your mother threaten me into silence. That's who you were." "But I'm not that person anymore," Alex insisted. "Today I cut all ties with Cordelia. I walked away from my inheritance, my trust fund, everything. I'm not her puppet anymore." Hallie studied him with those cold, assessing eyes. "You did that today, after you found out about Poet. That's not growth, Alex. That's guilt." "Maybe it started as guilt," he admitted. "But seeing you again, seeing what you've become, seeing our daughter, it made me realize what I threw away, not just you and Poet, but myself. The man I could have been if I'd had the courage to fight for what mattered." "Beautiful words," Hallie said, and there was no warmth in her voice. "But words are all you ever had, weren't they? It's easy to make promises. It's harder to keep them, especially when your mother starts applying pressure again. Because she will, Alex. She'll try to manipulate you, threaten you, make your life hell, and history suggests you'll cave. I won't. Prove it." The challenge was flat, emotionless. "Go home. Live your life. Stay away from us." If you can do that for 6 months without contacting me or trying to see Poet, maybe I'll believe you've changed. But I doubt you can. I think within a week you'll be back under Cordelia's control, regretting everything, trying to figure out how to undo today's dramatic gesture. The test felt impossible and also completely fair. 6 months without seeing his daughter, without trying to explain or apologize or build some kind of relationship with the only two people he'd ever truly loved. But if that's what Hallie needed to believe he'd changed, he'd do it. Okay, Alex said quietly. 6 months. But I have one condition. Her eyebrows rose skeptically. Let me be Poet's surgeon. Let me handle her follow-up care, her future surgeries, not as her father, just as her doctor. She needs the best, and you know I'm the best. Hallie's jaw tightened. She didn't want to admit he was right, but they both knew he was. Finally, she nodded. Medical appointments only, scheduled through my office. You don't talk to her about anything personal. You don't try to bond with her. You're just her surgeon. Can you handle that? It would kill him, but he nodded. Yes. Then we have a deal. Hallie turned back toward Poet's room, then paused. And Alex, if you break this agreement, if you upset her or confuse her or try to force your way into her life before I'm ready, I will make sure you never see her again. I have the resources and the legal standing to do it. Don't test me. She disappeared back into the room, leaving Alex alone in the hallway with an impossible promise and 6 months stretching ahead of him like an eternity. But he'd do it. He'd prove to Hallie that he'd changed, even if it destroyed him in the process. Chapter 4. The Punishment of Presence. The first follow-up appointment happened a week after Poet's discharge from the hospital. Alex prepared for it like a soldier preparing for battle. He reviewed her charts obsessively, consulted with every specialist he could think of, and practiced maintaining professional distance. Just her surgeon. Nothing more. When Hallie arrived with Poet, Alex's carefully constructed composure nearly shattered. His daughter was awake, alert, and absolutely beautiful. She wore a yellow dress with flowers on it and had bows clipped into her curly hair. She held Hallie's hand tightly, her grey-green eyes, his eyes, wide and curious as she looked around the examination room. "Good morning," Alex said, keeping his voice professionally pleasant. "I'm Dr. Morn. I'm going to check how you're healing, okay?" Poet pressed closer to Hallie's leg, suddenly shy. "Are you gonna hurt me?" The question stabbed through his chest. "No, sweetheart, I promise. Just gentle checking." Hallie lifted Poet onto the examination table and stood close, protective. "Dr. Morn is the doctor who fixed your heart, remember? He helped you feel better." "Oh." Poet touched her chest where the surgical incision was healing. "It doesn't hurt as much now." "That's very good," Alex said softly. He pulled on gloves and approached slowly, careful not to startle her. "Can I listen to your heart? I'll use this stethoscope. It might feel cold, but it won't hurt." Poet nodded solemnly. Alex placed the stethoscope against her chest and listened to the steady, strong beat of her repaired heart. His hands shook slightly. This was his daughter, his child. Her heart was beating because of his skill, yes, but also because Hallie had carried her for 9 months, given birth to her, raised her with love despite everything. "Perfect," he announced, pulling back. "Your heart sounds wonderful." "Mama says I have a special heart," Poet said proudly, "that it works extra hard." "Your mama is exactly right." Alex glanced at Hallie, who was watching him with that same cold assessment. "You have a very special heart indeed." The examination continued. Every measurement, every test result showed excellent recovery. Poet tolerated the appointment well, growing more comfortable as it became clear Alex wasn't going to hurt her. She even smiled at him once when he made a gentle joke about her dinosaur stickers. That smile nearly broke him. When the appointment ended, Hallie bundled Poet into her coat. "Say thank you to Dr. Morn." "Thank you," Poet said dutifully. then surprised Alex by adding, "You have nice hands. They're gentle like Mama's." Alex had to swallow hard before he could respond. "Thank you. That's very kind of you to say." After they left, he sat alone in the examination room for 20 minutes, trying to compose himself. He'd been in the same room as his daughter for half an hour and hadn't been able to say any of the things screaming inside him. Couldn't tell her he was her father. Couldn't hold her or tell her stories or do any of the 1,000 things fathers were supposed to do. The punishment fit the crime. He'd abandoned them, so now he had to watch from the outside while they lived their complete, full life without him. The pattern repeated over the following weeks. Appointments every 10 days to monitor Poet's recovery. Each visit, she grew stronger, more vibrant, more absolutely perfect, and each visit destroyed Alex a little more. He learned things about his daughter in fragments. She loved books, especially stories about brave girls. Her favorite color was purple. She wanted to be a doctor like her mama when she grew up. She had nightmares sometimes about the hospital and being scared and in pain, but Hallie always knew exactly how to comfort her. Alex also learned about Hallie through observation. She was an extraordinary mother, patient but firm, loving but not indulgent. She'd built a life for Poet that was stable and warm despite the challenges. Their small apartment, which he glimpsed once when he had to make an emergency house call, was filled with books and art and photos of the two of them together at parks, museums, birthdays. There were no photos of him anywhere. He'd been completely erased from their narrative, as if he'd never existed. One afternoon, Alex finished an appointment and found Hallie waiting while Poet played with toys in the corner. Usually Hallie left immediately, but today she lingered. "I need to tell you something," she said quietly. "Cordelia has been contacting me." Alex's blood went cold. "What?" "She called my office 3 times this week, sent flowers to my house with notes about wanting to meet her granddaughter. She's being persistent." Hallie's face was tight with tension. "I've ignored everything, but I thought you should know she's not giving up." "I'll handle it," Alex said immediately. "I'll make sure she leaves you alone." "How?" Hallie challenged. "You've cut her off financially, but she still has power, social connections, political influence. If she decides to make my life difficult, she can. Then I'll make her regret it." The words came out fierce, almost violent. "I swear to you, Hallie, I won't let her touch you or Poet." Something shifted in Hallie's expression. Not trust, but maybe the faintest crack in her armor. "You sound different when you talk about her now, less afraid." "I am different." Alex held her gaze. "I know you don't believe that yet, but I'm not going back to being her puppet. Not for anything." "We'll see," Hallie said, but there was less ice in her voice than before. That evening, Alex drove to his mother's mansion for the first time since the wedding. Cordelia received him in her drawing room, dressed immaculately as always, her face a mask of cold fury. "So you finally decided to crawl back," she said. "I'm not back," Alex replied. "I'm here to tell you to leave Hallie and Poet alone. That child is my granddaughter. That child is nothing to you." His voice was hard as steel. "You threatened her mother when she was pregnant. You made sure I never knew she existed. You don't get to pretend to care now." Cordelia's eyes narrowed. "I was protecting you. That woman was trying to trap you." "Stop." Alex held up his hand. "I don't want to hear your justifications. I'm here to make something very clear. If you contact Hallie again, if you try to see Poet, if you use any of your connections to cause them problems, I will destroy you." "You?" Cordelia laughed coldly. "You have no power. I made you everything you are." "No, you didn't," Alex interrupted. "You made me a coward. I made myself a surgeon. And I have information, Mother. Years of it. Every shady deal, every threatened business partner, every time you've used your influence to hurt people who didn't deserve it. I've kept records. If you force my hand, I'll release everything to the press and watch your perfect reputation burn." The blood drained from Cordelia's face. You wouldn't dare. Try me, Alex said quietly. Stay away from my family. That's all you need to do. Otherwise, you'll discover exactly how much I've learned from you about destroying people who get in my way. He left without waiting for a response, his hands shaking with adrenaline. He'd never spoken to his mother like that before, never threatened her or stood up to her manipulation with such finality. It felt like freedom. The next appointment with Poet, Hallie pulled him aside before they left. She hasn't contacted me again, she said. Whatever you did, it worked. Good, Alex replied. Hallie studied his face for a long moment. You really have changed, haven't you? I'm trying to, he admitted. Every day I'm trying to be the man I should have been 3 years ago. Don't do it for me, Hallie said softly. If you're changing, do it for yourself. And for her. She glanced at Poet, who was drawing a picture with crayons in the corner. She deserves better than a father who only showed up out of guilt. I know, Alex said, but guilt was the beginning. What I feel now is so much bigger than that. Hallie didn't respond, but as she gathered Poet and prepared to leave, she paused at the door. Next appointment is in 2 weeks, same time. I'll be here, Alex promised. I know you will, Hallie said, and for the first time, it didn't sound like an accusation. Chapter 5. The Mother Who Never Stopped Fighting. 3 months into their agreement, Cordelia made her move. It started with a legal letter delivered to Hallie's hospital office. Alex found out when his phone exploded with calls from Hallie, each one increasingly panicked. He was in surgery when they came through, but the moment he finished, he called her back. She's suing me for grandparent rights, Hallie said without preamble. Her voice was tight with barely controlled fury. Your mother filed a lawsuit claiming I'm preventing her from having a relationship with Poet. She's painting herself as a loving grandmother being cruelly denied access to her grandchild. Alex was already grabbing his keys, heading for the parking garage. I'm coming to you. Where are you? My office. But Alex, this is serious. She has lawyers, resources. So do we, Alex cut in. Where's Poet? With a friend. I didn't want her to see me like this. Hallie's voice cracked slightly. I can't believe she's doing this. After everything, she's actually trying to take legal action. I'll be there in 10 minutes, Alex promised. Don't panic. We'll handle this together. The word together hung in the air for a moment before Hallie responded. Okay, hurry. When Alex arrived at Hallie's office, she was pacing behind her desk, the legal documents spread across the surface. She'd been crying, her eyes were red and swollen, but she'd pulled herself together into that armor of professional competence she wore so well. Let me see, Alex said, reaching for the papers. He read through them quickly, his anger building with every paragraph. Cordelia's lawyers had crafted a narrative that painted her as a devoted family matriarch who'd only recently learned of her grandchild's existence. They claimed Hallie was being vindictive and unreasonable by denying Cordelia access. They even implied that Alex supported his mother's petition, which was an outright lie. This is garbage, Alex said flatly. Complete fiction. Any judge who looks at the actual facts will throw this out immediately. You don't know that. Hallie wrapped her arms around herself. She has power. She knows people. What if she convinces a judge that Poet should know her grandmother? Then we show them the truth. Alex pulled out his phone and began typing. I still have all the threatening messages Cordelia sent me when I told her about you 3 years ago. I have documentation of her attempts to control my life, and I have your testimony about how she threatened you when you tried to tell me about the pregnancy. Hallie stared at him. You kept records. I started keeping them after I left you, Alex admitted. Part of me always knew I'd have to fight her someday. I just didn't think it would be over my daughter. He looked up from his phone. But I'm ready for this fight, Hallie. I'm going to testify against my own mother if necessary. I'll burn every bridge with my family to protect you and Poet. Something in Hallie's face softened. Why? Why are you doing this? Because it's right, Alex said simply. Because Cordelia doesn't get to hurt you anymore. Because Poet deserves to grow up safe from her manipulation. And because... He stopped, the words catching in his throat. Because why? Hallie prompted softly. Because I love you, Alex said quietly. I never stopped. And I love our daughter, even though I barely know her. And if fighting my mother is what it takes to keep you both safe, then that's what I'll do. Hallie's eyes filled with tears. Alex, I'm not asking for anything in return, he continued quickly. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know the 6 months aren't up and I'm still proving myself. But you need to know that I'm all in on this fight, whatever it takes. For a long moment, Hallie just looked at him. Then she moved around the desk and, to Alex's shock, wrapped her arms around him. The hug was brief, almost awkward, but it was the first time she'd voluntarily touched him since he'd come back into her life. Alex froze, afraid to move, afraid to breathe, afraid she'd pull away if he did anything at all. Thank you, she whispered against his shoulder. I've been fighting alone for so long. Thank you for standing with me. When she pulled back, they were both crying. We need to get you a lawyer, Alex said, wiping his eyes. The best family law attorney in the state. I already have one, Hallie replied. Called her the moment I got these papers. She says we have a strong case, but it'll be expensive and emotionally draining. I'll pay for it, Alex offered immediately. No. Hallie's voice was firm. I can handle my own legal fees. I'm not helpless, Alex. I just need... She stopped, struggling with the words. I just need to know someone's on my side for once. I'm on your side, Alex said fiercely. Always, whatever you need. The lawsuit became their shared battle over the following weeks. Alex gave depositions detailing his mother's controlling behavior and threats. He provided documentation of everything, texts, emails, recorded phone conversations from years ago that he'd kept, because some part of him had known they'd be important someday. Hallie's lawyer, a sharp woman named Jennifer Rhodes, was impressed with the evidence. With this documentation and Dr. Morn's testimony, we can establish a clear pattern of threatening and manipulative behavior. It'll be nearly impossible for her to win grandparent rights. But Cordelia didn't fight fair. She hired private investigators who dug into every corner of Hallie's life, looking for anything that could be used against her. They found nothing. Hallie's life was beyond reproach, but the invasion of privacy was violating and terrifying. They've been following me, Hallie told Alex one evening, after a particularly brutal day of depositions. They were sitting in her office, both exhausted, surrounded by legal documents. I see the same car outside Poet's preschool, outside my house. It's like being hunted. I'll get a restraining order, Alex said immediately. On what grounds? They're not technically doing anything illegal. Hallie rubbed her temples. This is what she does, isn't it? She makes you feel unsafe, makes you question everything. Yes, Alex admitted. That's her specialty. But she can't win this, Hallie. She has no legal standing. She never tried to have a relationship with Poet before now. A judge will see through her manipulation. I hope you're right, Hallie said wearily. The court date arrived on a cold morning in early fall. Alex met Hallie outside the courthouse, where she stood with Jennifer Rhodes, looking exhausted but determined. Poet was with a trusted friend. Neither of them wanted their daughter anywhere near this ugliness. Ready? Jennifer asked. No, Hallie admitted, but let's do this anyway. Inside the courtroom, Cordelia sat with her team of expensive lawyers, looking every inch the elegant society matriarch. When she saw Alex walk in and sit beside Hallie, her expression went cold with fury. The proceedings were brutal. Cordelia's lawyers painted her as a loving grandmother who'd been unjustly kept from her only grandchild. They implied that Hallie was bitter and vindictive, using Poet as a weapon against the Morn family. Then it was their turn. Jennifer methodically presented evidence of Cordelia's threats, her manipulation, her attempts to destroy Hallie's family. Alex took the stand and testified about his mother's controlling behavior, about how she'd threatened to ruin Hallie if he didn't leave her, about the years of emotional abuse disguised as parental guidance. "Your Honor," Alex said during his testimony, his voice clear and steady, "my mother doesn't love my daughter. She doesn't even know her. This lawsuit isn't about Poet's well-being. It's about control. It's about punishing Dr. Benson and me for choosing each other over her manipulation. Poet doesn't need a grandmother who threatens and manipulates. She needs to be protected from one." Cordelia's face went white with rage, but she couldn't respond. The evidence was overwhelming. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes, reviewed everything in silence. Finally, she spoke. "I've seen many grandparent rights cases in my years on the bench," she said. "Most of them involve loving grandparents genuinely seeking a relationship with their grandchildren. This is not one of those cases. The evidence clearly shows a pattern of threatening and controlling behavior. Ms. Morn had no relationship with this child before filing this suit, and only seems interested now as a means of controlling or punishing the child's parents." Cordelia's lawyer tried to object, but the judge held up her hand. "The petition for grandparent rights is denied," she announced. "Furthermore, I'm issuing a restraining order. Ms. Morn is to have no contact with Dr. Benson or the minor child, directly or indirectly, for a period of no less than 5 years. Any violation will result in immediate legal consequences." The gavel came down with a sharp crack that sounded like freedom. Hallie collapsed against Alex's shoulder, her whole body shaking with relief. He wrapped his arms around her, not caring that they were in the middle of a courtroom, not caring that Cordelia was watching with pure hatred in her eyes. "It's over," he whispered into Hallie's hair. "She can't hurt you anymore." "We won," Hallie breathed. "Alex, we actually won." Outside the courthouse, Hallie turned to him with tears streaming down her face. "You stood up to her. You testified against your own mother." "She stopped being my mother the moment she threatened you," Alex said simply. "What about your family, your inheritance, everything she controls?" "I don't care." And Alex realized he truly didn't. "I'd give up everything 1,000 times over to keep you and Poet safe." Hallie searched his face for a long moment. Then she did something that shocked him to his core. She reached up and kissed his cheek, soft and brief, but deliberate. "Thank you," she whispered, "for fighting for us." Before Alex could respond, she was walking to her car, leaving him standing on the courthouse steps with his heart pounding and the ghost of her lips on his skin. The 6-month test was almost over, and for the first time Alex dared to hope that maybe, just maybe, they had a chance. Chapter 6. The cracks in the armor. The months after the trial brought unexpected changes. Hallie started inviting Alex to things beyond medical appointments. Small things at first. Coffee to discuss Poet's care plan, lunch to go over upcoming surgical options. But gradually, the conversation shifted from purely medical to personal. She told him about the challenges of balancing her career and motherhood. He told her about the loneliness of realizing his entire life had been orchestrated by someone else. They were learning each other again, careful and slow, like two people who'd been burned before touching fire. One afternoon, Hallie called him from the hospital in a panic. "I have an emergency surgery and my usual babysitter is sick. I know it's asking a lot, but—" "I'll watch Poet," Alex said immediately. Silence on the line. Then carefully, "Are you sure? You've never been alone with her?" "I'm sure." His heart pounded with nervousness and hope. "If you trust me with her." "Okay," Hallie said after a long pause. "Okay, I'll text you my address." An hour later, Alex stood on the doorstep of Hallie's home, his palms sweating. When the door opened, Poet peeked out from behind Hallie's legs, her eyes curious. "Hi, Dr. Morn," she said shyly. "Hi, Poet." Alex knelt down to her level. "Your mama has to go help another kid who's sick, so I'm going to hang out with you for a while. Is that okay?" Poet considered this seriously, then nodded. "Do you know how to make grilled cheese?" "I can learn," Alex promised. Hallie kissed Poet's forehead and gave Alex a long, meaningful look. "Call me if you need anything. I should be back in a few hours." Then she was gone, and Alex was alone with his daughter for the first time in his life. The first hour was awkward. Poet was polite but reserved, treating Alex like a friendly stranger rather than someone she could truly relax around. They made grilled cheese together. Alex burned the first attempt, which made Poet giggle, and ate lunch at her small kitchen table decorated with her crayon drawings. "Mama says you're a really good doctor," Poet said, swinging her legs. "She says you saved my life." "I helped," Alex said carefully, "but your mama did most of the work. She's the one who takes care of you every day." "Mama takes care of everything," Poet agreed, "but sometimes she's sad. I hear her crying at night sometimes." The admission hit Alex like a punch to the gut. "She does," Poet nodded solemnly. "I think she misses someone. Maybe my daddy. She told me he had to go away, but she still loves him." Alex had to look away to hide the tears suddenly burning in his eyes. "I'm sure he loves her too, very much." After lunch, Poet showed him her room. It was small, but filled with love. Bookshelves overflowing with stories, a wall covered in her artwork, a worn, stuffed rabbit on her bed that she introduced as Mr. Hoppy. She pulled out her favorite books and asked Alex to read to her. They settled on the couch together, Poet curled up against his side in a way that felt both natural and miraculous. Alex opened the first book, a story about a brave little girl who saved her village, and began to read. Halfway through the second book, Poet interrupted him. "You smell nice, like Mama's favorite soap." "Thank you," Alex said, his voice rough with emotion. "And you have a nice voice for reading. It's deep and safe-sounding." "Safe-sounding?" "Yeah," Poet yawned, snuggling closer. "Like when Mama reads to me before bed and I know everything's okay." Alex kept reading even as his vision blurred with tears. By the fourth book, Poet had fallen asleep against his chest, her small hand curled into his shirt. He sat frozen, afraid to move, afraid to disturb this perfect moment. This was his daughter. This beautiful, smart, kind little person was half him and half Hallie, and he'd missed nearly 3 years of her life. But he was here now. He was holding her while she slept, feeling her tiny heartbeat against his chest, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. When Hallie came home, she found them like that. Alex on the couch with Poet asleep in his arms, surrounded by picture books. She stopped in the doorway, her expression unreadable. "Hey," Alex whispered. "Surgery go okay?" "Yes." Hallie didn't move. "How was she?" "Perfect. We made lunch, read some books, and she fell asleep about an hour ago. I didn't want to move her." Hallie crossed to the couch and looked down at them. Something shifted in her face, something that looked almost like grief. "She looks comfortable with you." "She told me about her stuffed rabbit," Alex said softly, "and about how you cry sometimes at night." Hallie's breath caught. She wasn't supposed to know about that. "Kids are perceptive." Alex met her eyes. "She said she thinks you miss someone. Her father." "I do," Hallie admitted quietly. "Not the man who left me, but the man I thought he could be. The man I see glimpses of now." The confession hung in the air between them. Alex didn't know what to say, how to respond to this crack in her armor. "Let me put her to bed," Hallie said finally, reaching for Poet. "Wait." Alex adjusted his hold. "Let me carry her, please?" After a moment, Hallie nodded. She led Alex to Poet's room and pulled back the covers. Alex laid their daughter down gently, and Hallie tucked Mr. Hoppy into her arms. They stood together in the doorway, watching her sleep. "The 6 months are almost up," Hallie said quietly. "I know. You kept your word. You stayed away except for medical appointments and when I asked for help. You fought Cordelia. You've been consistent and present and—" She trailed off. "And?" Alex prompted, barely breathing. "And I don't know what to do with that," Hallie admitted. "Part of me wants to keep the walls up forever, to protect myself and Poet from being hurt again. But another part—" She stopped, her voice catching. "What does the other part want?" Alex asked softly. Hallie turned to look at him, and for the first time since he'd come back into her life, her eyes weren't cold. They were warm and scared and full of the same hope that was burning in his chest. "The other part wants to forgive you," she whispered. "Wants to believe that people can change, that you've really become the man I needed you to be 3 years ago." "I have," Alex said urgently. "Hallie, I swear, don't." She held up her hand. "Don't make promises. Just keep showing up. Keep being this version of yourself. Let me see that it's real and lasting, not just guilt or temporary growth." "Okay," Alex agreed. "I can do that." They walked to the door together. Before he left, Hallie touched his arm, stopping him. "Thank you for today," she said. "For taking care of her, for being gentle with her." "Thank you for trusting me with her," Alex replied. "I'm trying to trust you," Hallie corrected. "That's all I can promise right now, that I'm trying." After he left, Alex sat in his car for 20 minutes, replaying the evening. Poet falling asleep against him. Hallie's admission that she wanted to forgive him. The tentative hope growing between them like a fragile new shoot, breaking through frozen ground. He was still a long way from earning back what he'd lost, but for the first time, the path forward seemed possible. Chapter 7. The moments that matter spring brought warmth and small miracles. Alex had been helping Hallie with Poet for 3 months now, slowly building a relationship with his daughter. She called him Dr. Alex still, not Daddy, but she lit up when she saw him. She saved her drawings to show him. She asked him to read specific books because she liked his safe-sounding voice. One Saturday, Hallie called. "I have a work emergency. Would you be able to take Poet for the afternoon? There's a festival in the park she's been wanting to go to." "Of course," Alex said immediately. "I'd love to." "Okay." A pause. "She knows you're her father now, Alex. I told her last week." The world stopped. "You did?" "She was asking questions about why you looked like her, why you came around so much. I couldn't keep lying." Hallie's voice was tight with emotion. "She took it well. Better than I expected. But she might ask you things today. Hard things. Are you ready for that?" "Yes," Alex said, though his heart was pounding. "I'm ready." When he picked Poet up, she ran to him and wrapped her arms around his legs, the first time she had hugged him voluntarily. "Daddy!" The word nearly brought Alex to his knees. He knelt down and pulled her into his arms, this tiny person who was his whole world. "Hi, baby girl." "Mama told me you're my real daddy," Poet said seriously. "Not just my doctor." "That's right," Alex managed to say past the lump in his throat. "Where were you before?" The question was innocent, curious, not accusatory. "Mama said you had to work far away." Alex glanced at Hallie, who nodded slightly. Permission to be honest, in age-appropriate ways. "I made a mistake," Alex told Poet gently. "I wasn't here when you were born because I didn't know about you, and when I found out I had to spend a long time learning how to be a good daddy. But I'm here now, and I'm never leaving again." "Promise?" Poet asked, her grey-green eyes, his eyes, searching his face. "Promise," Alex said firmly. "Okay." Poet seemed satisfied with this. "Can we go to the festival now? They have face painting." At the festival, Poet held Alex's hand tightly as they walked through crowds of families. She pointed out things she wanted to do, the bounce house, the petting zoo, the craft table. Alex did everything she asked, his heart overflowing with a joy so profound it was almost painful. They got their faces painted. Poet chose a butterfly. Alex let her pick a tiger for him. They ate cotton candy that turned their tongues blue. They played games and won a stuffed unicorn that Poet immediately named Princess Sparkle. "This is the best day ever," Poet announced, her face sticky with sugar. "For me too," Alex said honestly. As the afternoon wore on, they found a quiet spot under a tree to rest. Poet climbed into Alex's lap without hesitation, something she'd never done before. She was getting comfortable with him, accepting him as a permanent presence in her life. "Daddy?" she asked softly. "Yes." "Do you love Mama?" The question caught Alex off guard. "Yes, very much. Why do you ask?" "Because Mama loves you too," Poet said matter-of-factly. "She told Aunt Jennifer on the phone. She said she was trying not to, but she couldn't help it." Alex's heart stopped. "She said that?" "Uh-huh." Poet yawned, tired from the day's excitement. "I think it would be nice if you lived with us. Then you could read me bedtime stories every night instead of just sometimes." "I would love that," Alex whispered, "but that's up to your mama." "I'll tell her I want you to," Poet decided. "She always listens to what I want." They spent another hour at the festival before heading back. When Alex returned Poet to Hallie, their daughter was half asleep, clutching her new unicorn. "Did you have fun?" Hallie asked, taking Poet into her arms. "The best day," Poet mumbled sleepily. "Daddy said he loves you." Hallie's eyes snapped to Alex's face. He felt his cheeks burn but didn't look away. "She asked," he explained quietly. "I couldn't lie to her." "No," Hallie agreed softly. "You couldn't." After putting Poet to bed, Hallie returned to the living room where Alex waited. She sat beside him on the couch, close but not touching. "She's getting attached to you," Hallie said. "Is that a problem?" "I don't know." Hallie twisted her hands together. "If you leave again, if you decide this is too hard or not what you want, that won't happen," Alex interrupted firmly. "You can't know that—" "Hallie!" Alex turned to face her fully. "I'm not going anywhere. Not in a month, not in a year, not in 50 years. I've spent almost a year proving that to you. What else do I need to do?" "Nothing," she admitted, her voice breaking. "You've done everything right. You've been patient and consistent and kind. You've stood up to your mother. You've changed your entire life. You've become the man I always knew you could be." "Then what's stopping you from letting me in?" Alex asked desperately. "I love you. I love Poet. I want to be a family with you both. What else do you need from me?" "I need to stop being afraid," Hallie whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I need to believe that this is real and permanent, that you won't wake up one day and realize you've made a mistake, that I won't give you my whole heart again just to watch you walk away." Alex reached for her hands, and this time she let him take them. "I walked away once because I was weak and scared and controlled by someone else. I'm none of those things now. You made me strong, Hallie. You and Poet. The love I have for you both is the realest thing I've ever felt." "I want to believe you," she sobbed. "Then believe me," Alex said, pulling her close. "I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Just let me love you." Hallie collapsed against his chest, crying years of pain and fear and hope into his shirt. Alex held her, stroking her hair, whispering reassurances. They stayed like that for a long time, two people who'd been broken by his mistakes slowly finding their way back to each other. When Hallie finally pulled back, her eyes were red, but clearer than he'd seen them in months. "I'm terrified." "Me too," Alex admitted. "But we can be terrified together." She laughed wetly. "That's not very romantic." "It's honest." He cupped her face gently. I don't have pretty words or grand gestures. All I have is the truth. I love you. I'm here. And I'll keep proving it every single day until you believe it in your bones." Hallie searched his face for a long moment. Then, slowly, she leaned forward and kissed him. It was soft and tentative, nothing like the passionate kisses they'd shared years ago. This was careful, testing, a question more than a statement. Alex held perfectly still, letting her control everything, barely breathing. When she pulled back, she was crying again. "I'm still scared." "I know," Alex whispered, "but we'll figure it out together." "Together," Hallie repeated, like she was trying out the word. Then, stronger, "Okay, together." Chapter 8. The truth comes out. Everything changed on a random Tuesday evening. Alex had just finished a long surgery when his phone rang. Hallie's name flashed on the screen, and the sound of her crying sent ice through his veins. "What's wrong?" he demanded, already running for his car. "I need you," Hallie choked out between sobs. "Please, Alex, I can't. I need you to come home, right now." Home. She'd called her apartment home, like it was his place too. "I'm on my way," he promised, his heart pounding. "Hallie, talk to me. Are you hurt? Is Poet okay?" "Poet's safe. She's at a sleepover. It's—" Her voice dissolved into crying so raw it made Alex's chest ache. "Just come. Please, just come." Alex broke every speed limit getting there, 20 minutes that felt like hours. When he burst through her door, he found Hallie on the living room floor, not even the couch, the floor, surrounded by scattered papers, her whole body shaking with sobs. "Hallie." He dropped to his knees beside her, pulling her into his arms. She collapsed against him, her fingers clutching his shirt like a lifeline. "I'm here. I'm right here. What happened?" For a long moment she couldn't speak. She just cried into his chest, years of pain pouring out of her. Alex held her tight, rocking her gently, murmuring reassurances he wasn't sure she could even hear. Finally, she pulled back enough to shove her phone at him with shaking hands. "Read it. Read what she did." Alex took the phone and read the email, then read it again. And again. Each word was a knife twisting deeper. The email was from a paralegal who'd worked at Cordelia's law firm. She was dying of cancer and wanted to clear her conscience. She'd sent Hallie everything: legal documents, payment records, correspondence between Cordelia and her lawyers going back 3 years. Cordelia had known Hallie was pregnant within 3 weeks of Alex leaving. She'd hired private investigators who'd tracked Hallie's doctor appointments. She'd paid off the hospital administrator to flag any attempt by Hallie to contact Alex. She'd intercepted every letter, every call, every desperate attempt Hallie had made to tell him about their daughter. More than that, Cordelia had threatened Hallie's family directly. There were copies of letters sent to Hallie's mother's clinic promising to destroy them financially if Hallie didn't stop trying to reach Alex. There were records of payments made to ensure Hallie never got past security when she'd come to the office building. But the worst part, the part that made Alex's hands shake with rage, was a memo Cordelia had written to her lawyers. "The girl thinks she can trap my son with a pregnancy. Make sure he never finds out, whatever it takes. By the time the child is born, she'll understand that the Morn family doesn't bend to manipulation." "She knew," Alex whispered, his voice hollow with shock. "From the beginning, she knew everything." "She stole you from us," Hallie sobbed. All this time I thought you just didn't care enough, that you blocked me because you wanted me gone. But it was her. Every single time I tried to reach you, she was there, stopping me, threatening me, making sure we'd never be together." Alex looked at the woman he loved, really looked at her, and saw the full scope of what his mother had done. Hallie hadn't just been abandoned. She'd been actively hunted, terrorized, kept away from him through threats and money and manipulation. She'd carried their baby while being threatened. She'd given birth alone because Cordelia had made sure of it. 3 years, Hallie continued, her voice breaking on every word. 3 years of Poet asking when her daddy would come home. 3 years of me lying to our daughter, telling her you loved her from far away because I couldn't bear to tell her the truth. And all of it, was because your mother decided we weren't good enough for you. Something inside Alex shattered completely. He pulled Hallie back into his arms, and they both broke down, crying together in a way they never had before. Not pretty crying, ugly, gasping, soul-deep sobbing that came from a place of absolute devastation. "I'm so sorry," Alex choked out between sobs. "I'm so sorry. If I had been stronger from the start, if I had fought her, if I had just—" "No," Hallie interrupted fiercely, pulling back to grip his face in her hands. "No, you were her victim too. I see that now. You were raised by a monster who taught you that obedience was love and control was care. You couldn't fight what you didn't understand was wrong." "That doesn't excuse—" "Nothing excuses it," Hallie agreed, tears streaming down her face. "Nothing makes it okay. But Alex, I'm so tired of being angry. I'm exhausted from hating you when what I should have been hating was her. She's the one who did this. She's the one who destroyed us." Alex cupped her face, his thumbs wiping away her tears, even as his own fell. "I don't know how to live with this, knowing what she did, knowing that I missed 3 years because of her manipulation." "We can't get those years back," Hallie whispered, "but we can make sure she never takes anything from us again." They sat on the floor for over an hour, just holding each other, crying together, letting out years of pain and rage and grief. At some point, they moved to the couch, but neither let go. They stayed wrapped around each other like if they separated, they'd fall apart. "I need to tell you something," Hallie finally said, her voice raw from crying. "Something I've been too afraid to say." Alex pulled back to look at her. Her eyes were swollen, her face blotchy from tears, and she'd never looked more beautiful to him. "I forgive you," she said, and the words came out like a confession. "Alex, I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, not because the pain is gone, but because I finally understand that you were as much a victim of her as I was. You were weak, yes, you let her control you, but you were also broken by her in ways I never understood until now." "Hallie," his voice cracked. "Let me finish," she insisted, fresh tears spilling over. "You've spent almost a year proving you've changed, fighting her in court, standing up to her threats, showing up every single day for Poet and me, and I've been holding on to this anger because I was terrified to let it go. Terrified that if I forgave you, I'd lose the armor protecting me from being hurt again." She took a shaky breath. "But that anger is killing me. It's keeping me from being happy. It's keeping me from loving you the way I want to. So I'm letting it go. I'm forgiving you. I'm choosing us." Alex's face crumpled. He buried his face in her shoulder and sobbed like a child, his whole body shaking. "I don't deserve it. I don't deserve you or Poet or this second chance." "No one deserves anything," Hallie said, her arms tight around him. "We just get what we fight for. And you've fought so hard, Alex. You've become the man I always knew you could be. The man who's brave enough to face his demons, who's strong enough to choose love over fear." They held each other and cried until there were no tears left, until they were empty and wrung out, and finally ready to be filled with something other than pain. "I love you," Alex whispered against her hair. "I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you more than I knew it was possible to love anyone." "I love you too," Hallie said, her voice fierce despite its rawness. "I tried so hard not to, tried to protect myself. But I love you, Alex Morn. I never stopped. Even when I hated you, I loved you." When they finally kissed, it was different from every other kiss they'd shared. This wasn't tentative or testing. This wasn't careful or afraid. This was desperate and deep and full of 3 years of longing and pain and hope all mixed together. They kissed like they were drowning and each other was air, like they were broken and each other was the glue. Hallie's hands tangled in his hair. Alex pulled her onto his lap, holding her so tight he was probably hurting her, but she didn't pull away. They kissed until their lips were swollen, until they were breathless, until the pain in their chests transformed into something that felt almost like healing. "Stay tonight," Hallie said, when they finally broke apart, both gasping. "Not in the guest room. With me. In my bed. I need you close." "Are you sure?" Alex's voice was wrecked. "I've never been more sure of anything." Hallie took his face in her hands. "I'm done being afraid. I'm done holding back. I want you, Alex. I want us. I want everything we should have had 3 years ago." That night, they didn't make love. It still felt too soon for that final step. But they held each other in Hallie's bed, wrapped so tightly together they couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. They talked about everything. The years they'd lost, the life they wanted to build, the family they were becoming. "What do we do about Cordelia?" Hallie asked in the darkness, her head on Alex's chest, his hand stroking her hair. "Nothing," Alex said. "We don't give her any more of our time or energy. She's already lost everything that matters. She lost a son. She lost a granddaughter. She'll grow old alone, knowing that her cruelty cost her everything. That's punishment enough." "You really think so?" "I know so." Alex kissed her forehead. "The best revenge is living well, being happy, building the life she tried to destroy. We do that, and she becomes irrelevant." Hallie was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I want to be a family, not just you visiting, not just slowly integrating. I want you here, in this apartment, in our lives, completely and fully. I want Poet to wake up every morning with both her parents under the same roof. I want to fall asleep like this every night. I want everything, Alex. Right now." Alex's heart felt too big for his chest. "You're sure? You're really sure?" "Completely." Hallie tilted her head up to look at him in the darkness. "I'm terrified, yes. But I'm more terrified of wasting another day being afraid when we could be happy. Life's too short. We've already lost too much time." "Then I'm moving in," Alex said, his voice thick with emotion. "Tomorrow I'll start bringing my things, and I'll spend every single day for the rest of my life making sure you never regret trusting me again." They kissed again, softer this time, a promise rather than a plea. In the morning, Hallie woke pressed against Alex's chest, his arms wrapped around her protectively, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. For the first time in 3 years, she felt completely safe, completely whole. When Poet came home from her sleepover that afternoon, she found Alex making pancakes in their kitchen, Hallie laughing at something he'd said, the two of them moving around each other with an ease that looked like they'd been doing this forever. Poet stopped in the doorway, her eyes wide. "Daddy?" Alex turned, spatula in hand, and smiled. "Hi, baby girl. You're here." She dropped her overnight bag and ran to him. Alex scooped her up, pancake batter and all. "Are you having breakfast with us?" "Better than that," Alex said, looking at Hallie for confirmation. She nodded, her eyes bright with happy tears. "I'm staying, for good, if that's okay with you." Poet pulled back to look at him with those serious grey-green eyes. "You mean like living here, with me and Mama?" "Exactly like that." "Forever and ever?" "Forever and ever," Alex promised. Poet squealed and threw her arms around his neck. Then she reached out for Hallie, who came close enough for their daughter to pull them both into a three-way hug. "We're a family," Poet said happily. "A real family." "We always were," Hallie said, meeting Alex's eyes over their daughter's head. "We just had to find our way back to each other." That night, after Poet was tucked into bed, with both parents reading to her one on each side, Alex and Hallie stood in the doorway of her room, watching her sleep. "Thank you," Alex whispered. "For what?" "For forgiving me. For giving me this chance. For being strong enough to trust again when I gave you every reason not to." Hallie took his hand and led him to their bedroom, not hers, theirs now. They climbed into bed and she curled into his side, her head on his shoulder, her hand over his heart. "We're going to make it," she said quietly. "I know it in my bones. We've been through the worst and we're still here, still choosing each other. That means something." "It means everything," Alex agreed, kissing her forehead. They fell asleep like that, together, whole, and finally ready to build the future they'd been robbed of 3 years ago. Chapter 9. The final test. The next few months should have been perfect. Alex had moved into their apartment completely, his clothes hanging beside Hallie's in the closet, his toothbrush next to hers in the bathroom. Every morning, he woke up with Hallie in his arms. Every evening he came home to Poet running to him with drawings and stories. They were building the life they should have had 3 years ago, but perfection had a way of inviting disaster. It started on a Tuesday morning when Hallie arrived at work to find her assistant visibly upset. "Dr. Benson, the board called an emergency meeting. They want to see you immediately." Hallie's stomach dropped. "What's this about?" "I don't know, but they received an anonymous complaint. Something about conflicts of interest and nepotism." The meeting was brutal. An anonymous email had been sent to every board member, alleging that Hallie had used her position as hospital owner to give preferential treatment to Alex, despite his history of abandoning his family. The complaint included twisted facts, dates when Alex had treated Poet, instances when Hallie had assigned him to high-profile cases, even their relationship timeline presented in the worst possible light. "Dr. Benson," the board chair said carefully, "we need to investigate these allegations. You understand that even the appearance of impropriety—" "This is Cordelia Morn," Hallie interrupted, her voice shaking with fury. "Alex's mother. She's been trying to destroy us for over a year. She lost in court, and now she's trying a different approach." "We still have to investigate," another board member said apologetically. Hallie left the meeting feeling like she'd been punched in the stomach. She called Alex immediately, and he left a consultation to meet her in her office. "She's not done," Hallie said, pacing like a caged animal. "She'll never be done. She's going to keep attacking until she destroys everything I've built." "No, she's not." Alex's voice was hard as steel. "Because I'm going to end this. Today." "Alex, what are you—" "I should have done this months ago," he said, already pulling out his phone. "I've been trying to take the high road, trying to just let her fade away. But she won't stop until someone makes her stop. And that someone is me." An hour later, Alex walked into his mother's mansion for what would be the last time. Cordelia received him in her sitting room, perfectly dressed as always, her expression one of cold amusement. "Alexander, I wondered when you'd come crawling back." "I'm not back," Alex said flatly. "I'm here to deliver a message." "Oh?" She sipped her tea like they were having a pleasant social call. "And what message would that be?" "Leave Hallie alone, leave Poet alone, leave us alone, or I will destroy you so completely you'll wish you'd never been born." Cordelia laughed, actually laughed. "You think you can threaten me? You have no power, Alexander. I made you." "You made me weak," Alex interrupted. "You made me obedient. You made me a coward. But I unmade all of that. And in the process, I collected evidence. Years of it, every shady business deal, every threat you've made, every person you've destroyed to get what you want. I have documentation, recordings, testimony from people you've hurt, enough to send you to prison for fraud, racketeering, and about a dozen other charges." The teacup paused halfway to Cordelia's lips. "You're bluffing." Alex pulled out his phone and pulled up a folder. The Hendricks real estate deal where you used insider information. The Martinez family's restaurant you destroyed because they refused to sell. The Johnson medical malpractice case where you paid off witnesses to protect your friend. Should I go on? I have 47 documented instances of illegal activity spanning 20 years. Cordelia's face had gone white. You wouldn't dare. I would, Alex said, his voice deadly calm. I absolutely would. But I'm going to give you a choice. You leave my family alone. Completely, permanently. And I keep this evidence locked away. You make one more move against Hallie, one more anonymous complaint, one more attempt to hurt them in any way, and I hand everything over to the federal prosecutor I've already been in contact with. You'd send your own mother to prison? Cordelia's voice was shrill now, the composure cracking. You stopped being my mother the day you threatened the woman I love while she was carrying my child, Alex said. You're just someone I used to know. Someone who destroyed more lives than she built. Someone whose legacy will be nothing but pain and manipulation. He moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Mother? You should know that Hallie and I are getting married. And you won't be invited. You won't know when it happens. You won't meet your grandchildren because, yes, we're planning more. You'll live out your days knowing that somewhere out there, your son has a beautiful family who's happy without you. That's your punishment, not prison, irrelevance. Alexander. Cordelia's voice broke, and for the first time, he saw real fear in her eyes. Goodbye, Cordelia. He used her first name deliberately, removing even that last vestige of maternal connection. I hope you enjoy your empire of nothing. He walked out and didn't look back. When Alex returned home, Hallie was cooking dinner while Poet did homework at the kitchen table. This scene, this simple, domestic, perfect scene, was everything his mother had tried to steal from him. How did it go? Hallie asked quietly. It's over, Alex said. She won't bother us again. How can you be sure? Alex wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Because I finally spoke her language. Power and consequences. She knows now that coming after us costs her everything. That night, after Poet was asleep, Hallie and Alex sat on their balcony under the stars. She'd been quiet all evening, processing. You threatened your mother for me, she finally said. For us, Alex corrected. For our family. For the life we're building. Are you okay with burning that bridge completely? Alex thought about it honestly. I'm more than okay. That bridge was made of poison. Burning it doesn't hurt. It heals. Hallie turned to face him, her eyes searching his face in the dim light. I want to tell you something. I've been holding back even after everything because I was afraid of being hurt again. But watching you today, seeing how far you've come, you don't have to say anything, Alex started, but Hallie put her finger on his lips. Yes, I do. She took a deep breath. I'm all in, Alex. Completely. No more walls, no more fear. I want to marry you. I want more children with you. I want to grow old with you. And I'm not afraid anymore because I know in my bones that you're never leaving us again. Alex's eyes filled with tears. You mean that? You're really ready? I'm ready. Hallie smiled through her own tears. Ask me, right now. No ring, no planning, just ask me. Alex slid off the chair and onto one knee. His hands shook as he took hers. Hallie Benson, you're the strongest person I've ever known. You survived everything I put you through and came out brilliant and beautiful and whole. You raised our daughter to be kind and smart and brave. You built an empire while I was too weak to build anything but walls. I don't deserve you, but I promise to spend every day of my life trying to. Will you marry me? Yes, Hallie said, pulling him up and kissing him. Yes, yes, yes. They held each other on the balcony, crying happy tears for the first time in their entire relationship. Everything else had been tears of pain or grief or relief, but these were pure joy. "I'll get you a ring," Alex promised. "Something perfect." "I don't need a ring," Hallie interrupted. "I just need you, showing up every day, being present, loving our daughter. That's all I've ever needed." They went inside and lay down in their bed, shared fully now without reservation. And for the first time, they made love, healing the last of the wounds between them with tenderness and passion and tears. Afterward, wrapped in each other's arms, Hallie whispered, "We're really going to make it, aren't we?" "We already have," Alex replied, kissing her forehead. "Everything else is just happiness." In the other room, Poet slept peacefully, completely unaware that her parents had just promised each other forever. But she'd know soon enough. She'd grow up seeing what real love looked like, the kind that survived being broken and came back stronger. Chapter 10. The Reunion Written in Tears. 6 months later, on a crisp autumn morning, Alex woke to Poet jumping on the bed with more energy than any human should possess before sunrise. Wake up, it's adoption day," she shrieked, her curls bouncing wildly. Beside him, Hallie groaned and buried her face in his chest. "It's too early for this much enthusiasm." "Never," Alex said, kissing her forehead before scooping Poet into his arms. "Today is the biggest day ever, right, baby girl?" "The biggest," Poet agreed, wrapping her arms around his neck. "After today, we'll all have the same last name and be a real forever family." "We're already a forever family," Hallie said, sitting up and pulling them both close. "But yes, today makes it official." The courthouse was quiet when they arrived, just them and their lawyer. Poet wore her favorite purple dress with sparkly shoes that lit up when she walked. She'd insisted on carrying a small bouquet of flowers because it's a special day and special days need flowers. The judge was a kind-faced woman who smiled warmly when they entered. "Dr. Morn, Dr. Benson, and this must be Poet." "That's me," Poet said proudly. "Well, Poet, do you know why we're here today?" the judge asked gently. "Yes, ma'am. My daddy is adopting me, so I can be Poet Morn, and we can all match." The judge's smile widened. "That's exactly right. Now I've reviewed all the paperwork, and I just have a few questions. Dr. Morn, do you understand that adoption is a permanent commitment? That you're accepting all the responsibilities and joys of being Poet's legal father?" "I do," Alex said, his voice thick with emotion. "There's nothing I want more than to be her father in every possible way." "And Poet," the judge turned to her, "do you want Dr. Morn to be your daddy officially? You can say no if you want to." Poet looked confused. "Why would I say no? He's already my daddy. He reads me stories and makes my breakfast and helps me with my homework and hugs me when I'm sad. This just makes it official, right?" "That's right, sweetheart. Then yes, I want him to be my official daddy forever and ever." The judge looked down at her papers, and Alex could swear her eyes were a little damp. "Then, by the power vested in me by the state, I hereby grant this petition for adoption. Alexander James Morn, you are now the legal father of Poet Hallie Benson Morn. Congratulations to your family." The gavel came down with a decisive crack, and the moment it did, Poet burst into tears. Not sad tears, overwhelming happy tears that only a child could cry when something too big to understand filled their heart. "Daddy!" She launched herself at Alex, who caught her and held her tight while she sobbed into his shoulder. "You're really, really my daddy now." "I'm really, really your daddy now," Alex confirmed, his own face wet with tears. He looked at Hallie, who was crying just as hard, and reached for her with his free arm. They stood there in the courtroom, all three of them crying and holding each other, while the judge quietly dabbed at her own eyes with a tissue. "This is my favorite part of the job," she said softly. Congratulations to all of you." Outside the courthouse, Poet wanted to hold both their hands, swinging between them as they walked to the car. "Can we call Grandma and tell her?" she asked, then paused. "Wait, I only have one grandma. Your mama is mean and we don't talk to her." "That's right," Alex confirmed, grateful that his daughter had never known Cordelia's cruelty. "That's okay," Poet decided. "We don't need mean people. We have each other." "We definitely do," Hallie agreed, squeezing Alex's hand. They went to Poet's favorite restaurant for lunch, then to the park she loved. Friends and colleagues joined them there. Jennifer, Raymond, nurses from the hospital, Poet's preschool teacher. It was small and intimate, just the people who truly mattered. While Poet played with other children, Alex pulled Hallie aside to a quiet bench under a tree. "I have something for you," he said, his hands shaking slightly as he pulled out a small box. Hallie's breath caught. "Alex!" "Let me say this first," he interrupted gently. "A year ago, I was standing at an altar marrying the wrong woman for the wrong reasons. I was empty, lost, playing a role in someone else's story. Then I got a call that brought me to you and Poet, and my whole world changed. You didn't make it easy. You made me earn every inch of ground. You made me prove I'd changed, and I'm grateful for that because it made me into someone worthy of you." He opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring. Not ostentatious, not trying to prove anything, just beautiful. "I know we said we'd wait," Alex continued, his voice breaking. "But Hallie, I can't wait anymore. I don't want to waste another day not being married to you. Not making it official that you're the only person I want beside me for the rest of my life. So I'm asking now, in front of our daughter and our friends, will you marry me? Will you let me spend forever trying to deserve the second chance you gave me?" Hallie was crying so hard she couldn't speak. She just nodded, her hands covering her mouth. "Is that a yes?" Alex pressed, hope and fear mixing in his chest. "Yes!" Hallie choked out. "Yes, you idiot! Yes, I'll marry you!" Alex slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her while their friends cheered, and Poet came running over, demanding to know what was happening. "Daddy asked Mama to marry him," someone told her. Poet's eyes went wide. "We're getting married. Are we having a wedding?" "We are," Hallie confirmed, pulling their daughter close. "Can I be the flower girl?" "You can be whatever you want," Alex promised. "Then I want to be the flower girl princess," Poet decided seriously. That evening, after their guests had left and Poet was bathed and in her pajamas, the three of them cuddled together on the couch. Poet sat between her parents, her head on Hallie's shoulder, her feet in Alex's lap. "This was the best day of my whole life," she announced. "Mine too," Alex agreed. "Mine 3, Hallie said, making Poet giggle at the grammar. As the evening grew darker, Poet fell asleep between them, worn out from the emotional day. Alex and Hallie sat in comfortable silence, neither wanting to move and disturb their daughter. "Do you remember the journal?" Hallie asked quietly. "The one I kept when I was pregnant?" "Every word," Alex admitted. "I've read it so many times I have parts memorized. There's one entry I never let you see. I tore it out because it hurt too much to keep." Hallie's voice was barely a whisper. "I wrote it the day Poet was born. I was holding her, and she was so perfect, and I wrote, 'I forgive him. Wherever he is, whatever he's doing, I forgive him because he gave me this, and I hope someday she knows how much I wished he was here.'" Alex's vision blurred with tears. "You forgave me even then?" "Part of me did. The part that loved you more than it hated you." Hallie looked at him over Poet's sleeping head. "I'm glad we found our way back, Alex. I'm glad you fought for us. I'm glad I was brave enough to let you." "Me too," Alex whispered. They carried Poet to her bed together, tucking her in with her favorite stuffed rabbit. Then they returned to their own bedroom and held each other in the darkness. "I love you," Hallie said. I'll never get tired of saying it. I love you too, Alex replied. Thank you for saving me. You saved yourself, Hallie corrected. I just gave you a reason to. They made love slowly, tenderly, sealing promises made in courtrooms and parks and quiet bedrooms. And afterward, wrapped in each other's arms, they finally let themselves believe in forever. The next morning, Alex woke first. He slipped out of bed and walked through their apartment, taking inventory of his life. Poet's drawings on the refrigerator, Hallie's medical journals stacked on the coffee table, his daughter's shoes by the door, too small to believe she was growing so fast. This was his life now, not the cold mansion of his childhood or the empty apartment of his mother's design. This messy, beautiful, real home, filled with love and laughter, and the occasional tantrum from a strong-willed little girl who had both her parents wrapped around her finger. He thought about Cordelia, alone in her mansion with her money and her power, and absolutely no one who loved her. She'd destroyed so many people in her pursuit of control, but in the end, what had it gotten her? Nothing but silence and regret. The best revenge really was living well. "Daddy?" Poet appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Why are you awake?" "Just thinking," Alex said, scooping her up, "about how lucky I am. Because you have me and Mama?" "Exactly because of that." Poet hugged him tight. "We're lucky too. We have you." And that, Alex thought as he carried his daughter to the kitchen to start breakfast, was the truest thing anyone had ever said to him. They were a family built on ashes and forgiveness, on earned trust and hard-won love. They weren't perfect. They'd stumbled and fallen and hurt each other. But they'd gotten back up, brushed themselves off, and chosen each other again. When Hallie joined them in the kitchen, her hair messy from sleep, wearing one of his old t-shirts, Alex knew he'd finally found what his mother's money and status could never buy. He'd found home. The end.